Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to talk about Phase 2 of WoW Patch 10.0, the Dragonflight Prepatch. Dragonflight comes out on November 28th, but that means we still have 2 more weeks to go, and we've received 3 new main pieces of content to fill our time between now and the expansion release, so let's just go piece by piece here. First off, the big one, Evokers. If you've pre-ordered Dragonflight, you can go ahead and make your Dragthir Evoker right now. If this is the first time you're hearing about Dragthir Evokers, you might just be one. Hello, and how was your 20,000 year coma? We're glad to have you back. Dragthir Evoker is a brand new class race combo. It's a race that can only be one class, and it's a class that can only be one race. It's a mail-wearing 2-spec answer to Demon Hunters in a lot of ways. Devastation is the ranged damage dealing Evoker spec, and Preservation is Evoker's healing spec. Evokers are a hero class. You start at level 58 in gear that is better than heirlooms at that level, and you can only make one evoker per server. You go through a very well tutorialized intro in the Forbidden Reach, a special spot off the coast of the main Dragon Isles. You proceed through a scenario and then get delivered to Orgrimmar or Stormwind once you finish. If it's your first time doing it, it'll probably take you an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, something like that. The character creation of Evokers is absolutely incredible. It has so much detail and depth, you have so much control over how your dragon form looks, and you have a human form, or visage form as they call it, to customize as well. Evokers combine the powers of the 5 Dragonflights to have a really thematically dense toolkit, maybe more than any class in the game, and I have to admit that while I'm not usually a big caster guy or a big lore guy, I'm very impressed and really sucked in and immersed. It's a really cool concept. You have red dragon spells, which tend to do direct damage and cause enemies to burn, a bit like a Fire Mage or a Destro Lock, but dragonish. You have blue dragon spells that serve as big burst damage cooldowns, which is a bit similar to the aesthetics of an Arcane Mage or a Balanced Druid's lunar spells, but not quite. Again, everything is very dragon themed. And all of the spell animations stand out from anything WoW has ever had before. The class, race, Evoker looks incredibly modern. Its spell animations are absolutely gorgeous, and I really just could not be more impressed by the aesthetics of the class. Okay, three more Dragonflights to go. Green dragon spells are your direct heals for the most part. Healing isn't the most interesting thing conceptually, but again, really cool looking animations. Bronze spells are generally oriented towards healing or utility cooldowns, so let me just give some of the best examples. First up is Stasis, which lets you make a copy of the next 3 healing spells you cast. You can then hold on to those until you press the button again, and then it instantly casts all 3 of them a second time. Pretty cool concept. Another one, Time Spiral, is a talented bronze skill on a 2-minute cooldown that instantly gives your entire raid group an extra cast of their main mobility skill, regardless of how many charges the ability has or whether it's already on cooldown. This is such an interesting idea when you compare it to more basic group movement abilities like Stampeding Roar or whatever it's called, Move Speed Totem, Windrush Totem. Being able to give all the warriors another charge of Heroic Leap or all the monks an extra charge of Roll or Chi Torpedo is so cool. It's not balanced or built equally for every class though. I think it just lets warlocks use Demonic Circle again. And I know it lets priests use Life Grip again. So I guess they can grip the warrior back to them after the warrior's leapt ahead, and then grip them back a second time after the warrior leaps away a second time. Priests are all trolls. And finally you have black Dragonflight abilities, which mainly seem to just be like personal damage reduction cooldowns, which this class has, or AoE CC tools like big AoE stuns. There's also Oppressing Roar, which is a big AoE cone skill that makes CCs on affected enemies last 50% longer. Kind of weird, but interesting. I decided I was going to wait until the class was available on live servers to play it for the first time, and I guess I regret that decision now. I kind of wish I had more experience with it so I could talk from more of a perspective of expertise, but I know that I'm having fun with it right now, and I do want to take some time to get deeper into it and make a deeper dive into it soon. For now, I know that it is very fun and cool. I have some concerns. The 25-yard range on all of your skills is a weird limitation for a ranged caster class. I don't know from raid testing personally, of course, because I was doing that all on a tank, as I always do, but I have seen from other players' logs that it has absurd AoE burst damage, and the healing spec seems like it's able to do huge amounts of AoE healing as well, but the sustained single target damage for devastation seems kind of mediocre. That's a concern. It's also possible that the community just still hasn't quite figured out the class yet. I mean, it is brand new after all. Either way, it's cool. It has a lot going for it, even with those drawbacks. It's super mobile, like super duper mobile for a caster. It has some instant spells which you can use while moving. It also has hover, which gives you a move speed increase and lets you cast while moving for a little while. It has a really cool new cast system called the Empower system, where you press and hold a keybind on some spells to make them charge up, and as they reach new levels, they have different effects. Like, just the first spell that you get as kind of the example spell is Fire Breath. It's a big red flight spell. It deals direct fire damage and fire damage over time in a big cone. At rank 1, it's a small amount of direct damage, but a big long dot. At rank 2, it's a medium amount of both, and at rank 3, it's a very big direct hit and a small dot. Blizzard thought about people with accessibility issues as well, so you can change this from press and hold and then release to tap the key to start and then tap the key again to finish. And I think that's really nice. You also have a pretty normal builder spender system with a resource called Essence, which you use to fuel your bigger spell damage abilities. I guess a bit like Destro Lock or whatever, not exactly, but you know, builder spender, pretty basic concept for Blizzard games. On top of all of that stuff, you have quite a lot of crowd control, and you have pretty decent defensive tools just by default as your racial skills. You have an AoE knockup skill and an AoE knockback skill. You just have a lot of utility in this class. I believe the big class buff you provide to the raid is 15% cooldown reduction for everyone's big mobility skill. So again, mixed results there. Warlocks and priests probably aren't going to care about being able to demonic circle or grip people a little more often, but shaving even more cooldown off of Vengeance Demon Hunter's Infernal Strike or Monk's roll is awesome. You also get a pretty large base armor buff just to your class, and some super straightforward damage reduction and healing cooldowns right at the top of the talent tree as well. Basically, super mobile, super bursty caster healer spec with lots of crowd control and pretty good defensive power. That really does sound like a ranged demon hunter. Except there's one thing people always complained about with demon hunters during Legion. I even did it. They couldn't use their wings to fly. Why can't they fly? What's the point of wings if all they can do with them is glide? Evokers can glide too, but Evokers can also fly. Evokers have Soar, a sort of store brand soda version of the incredible new dragon riding system being introduced in the Dragonflight expansion. Evokers are able to soar on any continent with a 3-minute base cooldown that goes down to 2 minutes if you have fully explored that continent. This rules. Zooming around as a flying dragon is incredibly fun, and being able to do it anywhere in the game world rocks. When they first let you play around with this skill during the whole tutorial scenario, they even give you a keybind to automatically reset its cooldown and let you just sit there and practice soaring around for as long as you like. This is so much fun to me. I could literally do this for hours if I didn't have other things to do, like writing guides or making videos. So just to give my thoughts on the Dragthyr intro scenario, I think it's really good and fun and also just well made. Blizzard has done a good job of making the whole experience, pretty intuitive and well tutorialized, and it's just some of the most fun I've had playing a ranged spec in as long as I can remember. Okay, second thing is the new dungeon, Uldaman Hand of Tyr. This is Uldaman, so it's technically a very old dungeon, but it has been revamped and all the trash and boss fights are new, and it has some new rooms near the end, and I think they're pretty well laid out. Honestly, kind of better than the old ones. I like this dungeon for the most part. It has some really narrow corridors that cause some camera collision issues, and I don't really care for that. But it was still a fun run. I like the bosses. I certainly like the Lost Vikings. They add a lot of fun flavor, and I think the ratio of bosses to trash is good. It is a 5-boss dungeon, but not that much trash. It will be a dungeon in the Dragonflight expansion, but it'll only be a Mythic 0 dungeon in the first season. It won't be part of the Mythic Plus rotation until Season 2. You queue for it by opening up your Group Finder tab, then you go to specific dungeons, and you can find it at the top of the list there. I don't know why they buried it like this in menus, it should be in the initial dropdown. Don't know why it's not. It drops 278 item level gear, so it's a really easy, great way to gear up a character quickly. Wow, that sentence was a tongue twister. If you're tanking, my main tip of this place is just point enemies away from the group. If you're not tanking, don't stand in front of enemies. Don't run into the stun circles on the third boss, and on the final boss, the pools he puts on the ground, do damage and reduce your haste by 30%. When he does his reverse time spell, they give you 50% haste instead, so you want to stand out of them most of the time, then jump into them during that cast. I think it's a pretty good fight actually, and I really like that Blizzard has brought back the Infinite Dragonflight again. They're one of my favorite groups of bad guys from way back in the day, and it's cool to see them. Alright, third thing, Primal Invasions. This is the gear catch-up, kill some stuff and get rewards, standard pre-patch event, and I think it's a pretty good one. The way these events work is pretty normal. Primal Elementals will rise up in several specific zones around Azeroth and Kalimdor for a couple of hours at a time, and they shuffle around a bit. There are 4 types of invasions: fire, air, earth, and water. They don't really behave all that differently from each other. The difference is mostly flavor. The 4 invasion zones are Northern Barrens and Ungoro Crater in Kalimdor, and Tirisfal Glades and the Badlands in Eastern Kingdoms. Primal Elementals in each of those zones will drop Primeval Essence, which is a bind-on-account currency that you can use to buy 252 item level gear from a vendor in Stormwind or Orgrimmar. You can also use it to buy a toy for 100 essences and a 20-slot reagent bag for only 5. The reagent bag is a new quality of life feature Blizzard has added with Dragonflight. It's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a 20-slot bag you can equip. It has its own special bag slot, and it just holds reagents. This should free up a lot of extra bag space for people, which is great. There is a boss elemental in each invasion zone that spawns every 10 to 20 minutes or so, and killing all 4 of the different elemental bosses gives you a feat of strength achievement. When this boss spawns, it does a zone-wide announcement and says something, you can't kill me or whatever, and you have to kill its minions for about 5 minutes before it becomes attackable. Then you kill it, you get a bunch of Primeval Essences, a random piece of 252 gear, and potentially a dimmed Primeval element. There are 4 dimmed Primeval elements, so, dim Primeval Fire, dim Primeval Air, etc. They are bind on account. If you get all 4, you can combine them all to make a bind on account trinket. You can also get a cool little pet from a quest offered by Khadgar. You just have to kill 10 Primal Elementals, very easy, and you get 30 Primeval Essences as well. This is a pretty good pre-patch event. I really like that the currency is BOA, so if you just want to log around and do the Khadgar quest on 10, 20 characters, you can knock each of them out in about 5 minutes a pop. Or if you want to farm all of the tokens up on a single strong character and then mail them around to your alts to gear them up, you could do that too. The gear is 252, so it's not like it's, mythic raid, insane busted item level, but I think it's fine for what is basically World Quest content, and the prices are super cheap. One-handed weapons are 25 tokens, two-handers are 45, so you can farm either of those up really quickly. There are items for every single gear slot, including trinkets, and the trinkets are genuinely not the worst I've ever seen, so that's good too. One's a damage and healing proc, the other is a stat proc. Super basic, but, totally good, fine. Actually, no, pretty good for catch-up gear. It is just catch-up gear, but it's easy to get, and that's really the goal here. You'll need around 400 tokens or so to get all of the armor and weapon appearances available to a given character if you're trying to do transmog farming. I think 400 tokens is not that bad for a full transmog set from an event like this. The only thing I'm iffy on is the dimmed primeval elements not being a guaranteed drop chance. You can kill the elemental bosses multiple times an event or multiple times a day to try and get them, and I think I've already gotten 1 or 2 just in the first few hours here, so I don't think they're super hard to farm, but I'm sure some people will be upset about heirloom trinkets only being available in a 2-week period and then also being RNG, and I get it. Maybe Blizzard will change it. It's not really that hard to get if you have the time, but if your time is limited, you may miss out, and I could see people being pretty mad about that. The heirloom trinket is fairly basic. It's basically just a stat stick with a damage proc, nothing special at all, but I would rather have it than not have it, and yeah, maybe Blizzard will change it so that that drop chance is either higher or just guaranteed. Alright, I think that's about it. Thanks for watching, have fun in the pre-patch, and I'll see you in Dragonflight. Bye.